Hi guys, and welcome to this second drum course, which is all about taking your first steps and learning your first grooves. Today we're going to learn the groove that you just heard me play there, which is the basic quarter note rock or pop groove. Okay, we're going to look at each part of the groove individually, so the bass drum, the snare drum and the hi-hats, and at the end of the lesson we're going to put it all together and play along to some music as well as looking at some notation so you can see exactly what you're playing. So the groove that we're going to learn today consists of the bass drum, the snare drum and the hi-hats. Okay, and we're going to begin by looking at the hands, so the snare drum and the hi-hats. Now, if you are right-handed, you want your right hand on the hi-hats. If you're left-handed, you want your left hand on the hi-hats, but your kit should be set up the other way, as we discussed in the first course. Okay. So strong hand on the hi-hats, and your weak hand is going to go underneath that stick onto the snare drum, like so. Okay. Now there's a simple way of remembering how to play this groove, and it's a little sort of rhyme, I guess, that I use, and that is just right, both, right, both. Okay, so you're going to do your right hand, then both hands, then your right hand again, then both hands again. Okay. And it should sound something like this. I'm going to play it round and round and round, and if you're sat at your drum kit, join in with me. If you're not sat at your drum kit, get yourself some sticks and just tap on anything. Right hand, then both hands, right hand, then both hands. Okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, both, 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 right. Right, both, right, both, right, both, right, both, right, both, right, both. One, two, three, four, stop. Okay, if you're struggling with that and you don't find it too easy, then slow it down, go a bit slower. Use the same vocal reminder that I was using, right, both, right, both. Take the tempo down and work your tempo up to where you need it to be, around that sort of tempo. Okay, and try playing along to a song too. Now let's have a look at how that looks if we write it down in notation form. So you can see on your screen a series of lines. Now this is called the stave. Okay, and it's made up of 5 lines. Now, when we read music, we place different notes, or in our case, because we're drummers, different drums at different points on the stave. Okay, so the hi-hat cymbals we're going to put at the top of the stave with an X, as you can see now. Okay, so that's the hi-hat, and the snare drum we're going to put in between the middle line and the line above that. Okay, and that's a dot. Okay, the note head is a dot, and that is the snare drum, as you can see now. And if we put that together into the groove that we were just playing, it should look like this. Now you can see at the start of the groove 2 numbers, 4 and 4. Now this is just telling you that in each measure of music, in each bar of music, now a bar is just a measurement of music, there are 4 beats, okay, which is why when I counted in, I counted to 4, okay, and it's called a time signature, okay, so time signature 4/4, and it tells you how many beats are in the bar. Now let's look at what our bass drum is doing in this groove. So, where our hi-hats were playing on every beat of the bar, every quarter note, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and our snare drum was playing on beat 2 and beat 4 of each bar, the bass drum will be playing on beat 1 and beat 3 of each bar. And as you can see from the screen, the image on the screen, the bass drum is symbolised by a dot at the bottom of the stave. Okay, so that's the bass drum. And the bass drum pattern, quite simply, is played like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's on beat 1 and beat 3 of each bar. Okay, remember the snare drum is on 2 and 4. Okay, so that's the bass drum. The difficulty now is putting those two patterns together. Now that we've looked at each component of the groove individually, it's time to put it all together to make the groove complete. The best way to do this is to start really, really slowly, okay? As slow as you feel that it's possible for you to play this groove. The most difficult thing about learning an instrument is playing the material in the first place. Once you can play it, getting it faster isn't that much of a challenge, really, okay? Please do refer to the notation that is appearing on screen. Remember, the bass drum is at the bottom, and the hi-hats are notated with the X's at the top, and the snare drum is the dot sort of in the middle of the stave. Okay, so let's try around this tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. And try and count while you play, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Counting while you're playing is really useful to help you understand how the groove works. It helps you to understand that you're playing the snare drum on beats 2 and beat 4 of each bar, of each measure, the bass drum on beat 1 and beat 3 of each measure, etc. When you can play this groove at a variety of tempos, do move on to the next shot. If you're really struggling, pause the video here, get this groove under your control at a slow tempo, work your way up, and then move on. Now that you can play the groove at a variety of different tempos, let's try and play it along to a backing track. I'll count you in after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're playing this groove, remember to make the bass drum and the snare drum much louder than the hi-hats, otherwise it just won't groove the same. The groove is how the music feels, okay? And if you're playing the hi-hat really loud and you can't hear the bass drum or the snare drum that clearly, it won't have the same impact, it won't have the same groove. So really do try and bring the hi-hat down, the bass drum and the snare drum up. Try this groove at all different tempos, and most importantly, try playing along to music that you enjoy playing along to. So anything that's simple with a steady pulse, it could be really slow, that would be beneficial for you. And then try and find faster songs, and go fast to slow and everything in between, so you're practicing at all different tempos, okay? Next week, we're going to look at how to play some fills, okay? So we can make this groove sound even more interesting. But until then, have fun and take care.